You're watching Good Afternoon Kentucky with Erica Bivens and T.G. Shock.
Hey, welcome back. Well, we are talking about a book today written by a Lexington native. We want to welcome in Winn Miller, the author of The Hunt for the Peggy C, a World War II maritime thriller. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
This is fascinating. For folks who haven't had a chance to pick up a copy yet, tell us more about the synopsis of this novel.
It's a maritime thriller right before World War II, before America entered World War II, and it's about an American smuggler who struggles to outrun a Nazi U-boat captain bent on revenge and outwit the mutinous crew of his own cargo ship to rescue a Jewish family he's never met.
Okay.
First for money and then for love. So it's an action adventure, but it's really a love story that wrapped around the action adventure. And when I originally wrote it as a screenplay, when I pitched it, I said it was Casablanca meets Das Boot.
Oh, wow. Okay. I got to ask this question. I'm just curious, why World War II? Why that topic?
I didn't pick it. It picked me.
Okay.
I had read a ton of history about World War II, but it actually came from a dream.
Really?
I was, years ago, I was with my daughter Allison and my wife Margot watching some terrible action adventure. I don't remember which one. And I kept telling them, I said, I know I can write a better screenplay than this. And so that night, true story, I had a dream. And when I woke up, I knew the first scene of the movie, I knew the last scene of the movie, and I knew the name of the ship, the Peggy C. I have no idea where any of that came from. I have no naval connections.
Wow.
I've never been on a U-boat. I've never been on a tramp steamer. So
That's
fascinating.
fascinating.
I had to spend years researching it, but between my day job and finally, when COVID hit, I decided it's time to do a novel.
It's fascinating, and I want to ask this too because obviously you're from Kentucky, which is landlocked. I mean, how did you get so in depth? Was it just through research that you could write about U-boats and things like that?
Yes, I read a bunch of books. I watched documentaries. I watched YouTube instruction things on how you sail, so I would get all of the technology correct and the history accurately, because I didn't want a sailor to pick it up and say, hey, they wouldn't say that or they wouldn't do that. And then I had some sailors actually read it, some submarine officers read it to make sure that I got that right, as well as the other nautical terms they used.
Speaking of the history, I mean, were there any tough parts to write about in this? Any lessons learned too?
Oh yeah, because it begins in Amsterdam in 1941, occupied by the Nazis, and the Jewish family that escapes on the Peggy C. One of them tells the story, Miriam, the heroine, of what it was like as the Nazis turned up the heat, because the Holocaust wasn't that they just came in and took everybody away. They came in and they slowly turned up the heat and made life more and more miserable. They made you wear the J for Jew. They kicked you out of school, kicked you out of jobs. You weren't allowed in restaurants. And then they started taking people away to work camps, is what they said. And Holland was an odd country in that it was the only place in World War II that had a nationwide strike against the Nazis' treatment of Jews. It went on for 3 days, and the Nazis ended it with guns and bombs. But there were 3 days of marches, and my lead character, Miriam, and her young nephew go to one of the protests, and they see a young Gentile, a boy that they had grown up with, and who's wearing the Dutch fascist uniform, the black uniform, and he comes over, instead of saying hello, he beats her up and breaks the boy's leg. And she says, the last thing I saw was him walking away with my blood on his hands and my nephew's blood on his hands.
Wow.
So researching just how horrible that was.
Yeah,
that was tough, and it was a tough scene to write.
I imagine. Well, this is available now, right?
Yes.
If folks want to pick up a copy, where can they get that?
Well, you can pick it up at Joseph-Beth.
Okay.
It's where I will be on Saturday doing a book signing with Tom Eblen, the former Herald-Leader columnist, will be interviewing me, and we'll have wine and cheese. or you can pick it up online. It's on Audible. It's hardback, and just about anywhere you can find books, you can find this.
Well, it's fascinating, and I love that we have someone from Lexington writing about this. So
Yeah,
thank you so much, John, for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Stick around. We've got to look at your headlines right after this.